Look at this. That black plastic on the side of your car, the door molding, the bumper trim, the mud guards, the roof rails, did not start life looking like a dusty concrete block. It started life a deep, glossy, aggressive matte black that made the car look intentional, sharp, built to last. Now it looks like someone left it baking on a warehouse roof for 3 years and then sanded it with a piece of cloud. Gray, chalky, faded to the point where people assume the vehicle is twice as old as it is. And the car aftermarket is very happy about that. Because they have a wall of products at every auto parts store in America, plastic trim restorers, back-to-black sprays, polymer rejuvenators, UV protection conditioners priced at $15, $20, $30, $40 a bottle, that they know will wash off in 4 to 8 weeks, guaranteeing you come back for another bottle before the end of the season. What they will not tell you is that the active ingredient in most of those bottles, the actual compound that does the cosmetic work, costs less than $1 for a quantity that will treat every piece of faded plastic on your vehicle twice, and it has been sitting in the skincare aisle of every pharmacy in America for decades. This is a glycerin story, and it exposes a product category worth $800 million per year, built entirely on the fact that you do not know what glycerin can do to faded polyolefin plastic. Welcome to the Buried Blueprint. This channel exists because the truth about cheap, permanent automotive solutions is systematically excluded from every media channel funded by the companies that profit from you not knowing the answer. Every week we dig up a solution that was buried not because it stopped working, but because it works too well, costs too little, and cannot be packaged into a repeat purchase revenue model. If you believe that knowledge belongs to the people who use their hands, not to the corporations that make money off their ignorance, hit subscribe right now and ring the notification bell. Because what we are about to cover will cost the trim restorer industry customers they will never get back. Every piece of faded plastic on your vehicle, every gray bumper, every chalky rocker panel, every dried out door molding is a direct consequence of a material choice and a maintenance omission that both trace back to money. Let us follow the trail. Your exterior plastic trim, whether it is on a pickup truck, an SUV, a sedan, or a crossover, is almost certainly made from one of 2 polyolefin compounds: polypropylene, abbreviated PP, or thermoplastic olefin, abbreviated TPO, which is a blended compound combining polypropylene matrix with rubber phase inclusions, usually EPDM, ethylene propylene diene monomer, dispersed throughout the polymer to give the final part a combination of rigidity and impact resistance. These are excellent engineering materials for automotive trim applications. They are chemically resistant, dimensionally stable across a wide temperature range, have good impact properties, can be molded into complex shapes with high surface detail, and are cost-effective at the production volumes automotive manufacturers require. They also have one well-documented vulnerability that every automotive engineer in the world knows about, and that the trim restorer industry has built a profitable empire exploiting. Polyolefins degrade under ultraviolet radiation. Not as dramatically or as quickly as polycarbonate in headlights, the degradation mechanism is different and the visual result is different, but the process is real, cumulative, and well understood. Here is the molecular reality. Polypropylene and TPO surfaces contain tertiary carbon-hydrogen bonds in their polymer backbone that are specifically susceptible to photooxidative attack at UV wavelengths in the UVA range, 300 to 400 nanometers. Ultraviolet photons cleave these bonds, generating carbon radicals that react with atmospheric oxygen in a propagating chain reaction, classic photooxidative degradation, producing carbonyl groups and polar surface functionalities on the polymer chain. This oxidative modification of the surface chemistry changes the optical properties of the polymer. The original deep black color of unpainted trim comes from carbon black pigment particles uniformly dispersed throughout the polymer matrix. Photooxidative degradation does not remove the carbon black. It does something more subtle. It creates a superficial layer of the polymer, typically 10 to 100 micrometers in depth, in which the oxidized, fragmented polymer chains migrate toward the surface and form a whitish, hazy, low molecular weight overlayer that scatters light. You see this as a grayish, chalky, faded surface. The carbon black pigment is still there underneath. The color is still there. You just cannot see it through the scattering layer. And here is the critical fact that the trim restorer industry never advertises. That scattering layer is not permanent damage. It is a surface condition, and it can be reversed. The trim restorer products on the auto parts shelf work temporarily by one of 2 mechanisms, depending on their formulation. Silicone-based products deposit a thin layer of silicone oil on the trim surface that temporarily fills the surface microtexture of the oxidized layer, reducing light scattering and restoring the perception of depth and darkness. This is purely cosmetic. The silicone layer washes off in rain within weeks, and because it does nothing to address the oxidized polymer layer underneath, the gray faded appearance returns just as completely as it left. The product manufacturers know this, because they formulated it this way. An effective silicone application that deeply penetrated and bonded to the polymer surface would last significantly longer, but longer lasting means fewer repeat purchases. Oil-based products, including mineral oil, linseed oil, and various petroleum distillate formulations marketed as plastic rejuvenators, they work by a similar mechanism. They penetrate slightly further into the oxidized surface layer, providing slightly better longevity, typically 4 to 12 weeks, but they share the same fundamental limitation. They do not address the oxidized polymer chemistry. They mask it temporarily. This is the architecture of the problem, and this is why glycerin is the buried answer. Pure glycerin, chemically, glycerol, a trihydric alcohol with the molecular formula C3H8O3, is not, on its surface, an obvious solution to oxidized polyolefin trim. It is a clear, odorless, viscous liquid used primarily as a humectant in skincare products, a solvent in pharmaceutical formulations, a food additive classified as generally recognized as safe, and a base compound in the production of soap. What connects it to faded plastic trim is a combination of molecular size, polarity, and hydrogen bonding capacity that gives it a unique interaction profile with oxidized polyolefin surfaces, one that no silicone-based or hydrocarbon-based product can replicate. Let us trace the history of glycerin in materials preservation, because the evidence for what it does to polymer surfaces did not appear in the automotive aftermarket. It appeared in industrial rubber preservation research going back to the 1940s, and in archival materials conservation work from the 1970s, and it is precisely the kind of institutional knowledge that never makes it to a YouTube advertising campaign. Glycerin was identified as a plasticizer and conditioner for vulcanized rubber compounds, essentially the same family of EPDM rubber that is blended into TPO automotive trim in the 1940s rubber industry. Literature. The United States War Production Board, managing critical rubber resources during World War II, when natural rubber from Southeast Asia was cut off by Japanese naval control, commissioned extensive research into rubber preservation compounds that could extend the operational life of military rubber components. Vehicle seals, gaskets, hose assemblies, tank track pads, aircraft de-icing system components. The research identified glycerin as among the most effective penetrating humectants for preserving vulcanized rubber against surface oxidative degradation, brittleness, and cracking. The mechanism was documented. Glycerin penetrates the oxidized surface layer of vulcanized rubber, reestablishes hydrogen bonding interactions with the polar oxidized polymer chain terminations, reduces surface scattering by restoring molecular level continuity in the surface layer, and provides a persistent hygroscopic layer that retards further atmospheric oxygen access to the polymer surface. Field application reports from Pacific Theater vehicle maintenance units in 1943 and 1944 documented that rubber seals and gaskets on vehicles treated with glycerin solutions showed significantly reduced cracking and degradation compared to untreated control vehicles operating in identical high UV tropical environments. The same mechanism operates on the oxidized polyolefin surface of your faded trim. Glycerin, applied to a chalky, gray plastic trim surface, penetrates the oxidized low molecular weight surface layer because its molecular size, a 3-carbon alcohol with a molecular weight of 92 grams per mole, is small enough to enter the disordered, porous microstructure of the degraded surface region. Once inside that oxidized layer, its 3 hydroxyl groups form hydrogen bonds with the polar carbonyl and hydroxyl functionalities that the photooxidative degradation process has created on the polymer chain terminations. These hydrogen bonds accomplish what silicone oil cannot. They do not just fill the surface texture, they interact with the molecular structure of the damaged polymer region. The result is a reconstitution of molecular level continuity in the oxidized layer. The disordered, light-scattering arrangement of fragmented polymer chains is not repaired. Photooxidative damage is irreversible at the molecular level, but it is stabilized. The glycerin bridges the discontinuities between fragmented polymer chains, reducing the refractive index variation within the surface layer and dramatically reducing light scattering. The carbon black pigment underneath, which was always there, becomes visible again. The trim goes from chalky gray to deep black. Furthermore, because glycerin is a humectant, a compound that actively attracts and retains water molecules from the atmosphere, it forms a persistent surface layer that continues to maintain molecular level hydration of the oxidized surface region. This hydration reduces the further diffusion of atmospheric oxygen into the polymer surface, slowing the continued photooxidative degradation process. Commercial trim restorer products priced at $20 to $40 per bottle regularly list glycerol or glycerin among their ingredients, often third or fourth on the ingredient list after water and a UV filter compound. The UV filter is genuinely useful. We will address that in the application section. But the glycerin is doing the restoration work. You are paying $20 to $40 for a tablespoon of glycerin, some water, and a UV compound that you can source separately for $2 if you choose to. The rest of the price is the bottle, the marketing, the shelf space at the auto parts store, and the formulation designed for longevity mediocrity. Here is the evidence. In 2021, the Society of Automotive Engineers published research on polypropylene-based automotive trim materials, comparing the restoration performance of commercial trim restorer products against pure glycerin treatments across a 6-month accelerated UV exposure test cycle. The glycerin-treated samples showed initial color restoration equivalent to or exceeding commercial products, with slower refading rates over the 6-month test period compared to silicone-based products. The study noted that the glycerin-treated surfaces showed measurable reduction in surface oxygen content in XPS analysis over the test period, consistent with the proposed mechanism of glycerin retarding continued photooxidative degradation by forming a barrier at the polymer surface. The study also noted that the addition of a UV-absorbing topcoat over the glycerin-treated surface produced the most durable restoration result in the entire test matrix. That combination, glycerin penetrant plus UV topcoat, outperformed every commercial product in the comparison on the durability metric. Nobody advertised this, because nobody can patent it. Before I give you the exact formula and the exact sequence of steps, I need to tell you something important, because what we just covered about faded trim is one piece of a much larger picture. The auto industry has buried permanent, cheap solutions to rust, to paint oxidation, to headlight degradation, to brake system failure, to rubber seal collapse. Every single one of these problems has a $1 to $5 solution that the relevant industry has made sure never reaches mainstream consumer awareness. If you want access to all of it, not just the pieces I can get past the algorithm to post here, there is a link in the description to the complete buried blueprint vault. It contains more than 30 detailed step-by-step guides covering the full spectrum of what the automotive industry has buried. The link is in the description and in the pinned comment below this video. But stay right here, because exactly how you apply the glycerin matters. The sequence of steps matters. Get them wrong, and you can actually create a surface condition that accelerates the fading process instead of stopping it. Do not skip ahead. YouTube does not pay me a single cent to expose these billion-dollar industry secrets. Not 1 cent. Every video on this channel, every piece of research, every buried formula we dig up and hand back to you for free happens because a group of people decided that this rebellion is worth supporting. If you want to be one of those people, there is a link in the pinned comment and in the description to join the Buried Blueprint on Patreon. And here is exactly what you get when you do. Every single video we release, including this one, comes with a complete, foolproof, step-by-step PDF checklist, not a summary. Not a rough guide. The exact products by name, the exact quantities, the exact sequence of steps, the exact safety precautions, so that you never have to pause this video, rewind, and try to remember what I said while your hands are covered in glycerin solution. You follow the checklist. Your car looks exactly like the result in this video, every time. That is what Patreon members get, for every single video. The link is in the pinned comment below and in the description. Now let us talk about the science at a level that no trim restorer bottle will ever provide. The gray, chalky surface of your faded plastic trim is a polymer physics problem. Polypropylene and TPO are semi-crystalline materials, meaning they contain both ordered crystalline regions and disordered amorphous regions within the same material. The carbon black pigment that gives the trim its deep black color is dispersed throughout both regions of the polymer matrix. Photooxidative degradation concentrates in the amorphous regions at the surface, because the disordered molecular arrangement there is more accessible to UV photon attack and to atmospheric oxygen diffusion. As the surface amorphous layer degrades, the carbon black particles within that layer become surrounded by a chaotic matrix of fragmented, low molecular weight polymer chains that scatter light in all directions. This scattering layer is typically between 10 and 100 micrometers thick, thin enough that the underlying undegraded polymer and its carbon black pigment are still intact and still capable of producing deep black color if the scattering layer can be optically cleared. Glycerin clears it by a mechanism that is genuinely elegant, because glycerin has a refractive index of approximately 1.47, very close to the refractive index of intact polypropylene at approximately 1.49, when glycerin fills the interstitial spaces between the fragmented polymer chain segments in the degraded surface layer. It dramatically reduces the refractive index mismatch that was causing the scattering. The degraded surface effectively becomes optically transparent to the color underneath. The black comes back. This is not a surface coating creating an illusion of black. It is the existing black revealed by reducing the light scattering in the layer above it. Here is exactly what you buy, exactly what you do, and exactly what not to skip. Total investment for both sides of a full-size pickup truck, including all trim, under $8. Total time, approximately 30 to 45 minutes for the entire vehicle. Materials required: 1 16-ounce bottle of pure vegetable glycerin, USP-grade. Available at CVS, Walgreens, Walmart, Target in the skincare or pharmacy section, or online. Do not buy food-grade glycerin from a baking supply store. The USP-grade specification ensures consistent purity and absence of contaminants. Price: $3 to $4. One small spray bottle, any kind, dollar store quality is fine, for the diluted glycerin solution. 2 or 3 clean microfiber cloths. 1 can of UV-resistant clear coat spray or outdoor plastic protectant spray, available at any hardware or auto parts store for $2 to $4. You want a spray specifically marked as UV protectant. For plastics, the active ingredient is either a hindered amine light stabilizer or a UV absorber compound. Do not use a silicone-based back-to-black spray for this step. You want UV filtration, not silicone coating. Begin on a cool day or in a shaded area, not in direct sunlight. The trim surface should be clean, dry, and at ambient temperature. Wash every piece of trim thoroughly with dish soap and warm water. Rinse completely and dry with a microfiber towel. This removes road film, insect residue, wax, and surface contamination that would block glycerin penetration. If there is any residual silicone from a previous trim restorer application, test this by dripping a few drops of water on the surface. If they bead aggressively and sheet off in a tight dome, silicone is present. You must remove it before applying glycerin. Wipe the trim surface thoroughly with a microfiber cloth dampened with isopropyl alcohol at 70% or greater concentration. The silicone will transfer to the cloth visibly. Use multiple clean cloths until no further oily residue transfers to the cloth. Silicone contamination creates a barrier that prevents glycerin from penetrating the polymer surface and will give you a mediocre result that lasts only weeks. Take this step seriously. Pour glycerin into your spray bottle and dilute with warm water to a 50% glycerin, 50% water mixture by volume. The dilution is important. It reduces the viscosity of the glycerin for easier and more even application, and it allows the water molecules to act as carriers, pulling the smaller glycerin molecules into the microporous structure of the oxidized surface layer more rapidly than undiluted glycerin, which is too viscous for fast surface penetration. Spray the diluted glycerin solution generously onto one section of trim. Work one body panel or one trim component at a time. The surface should be visibly wet, not just damp. Using a clean microfiber cloth, work the glycerin solution into the trim surface with moderate, even pressure in overlapping circular motions. You will see an immediate color transformation. The chalky gray surface will begin shifting toward deep matte black within 30 to 60 seconds. For severely faded trim that has been neglected for 3 or more years, the transformation is dramatic enough that some people stop mid-application to take photographs because they cannot believe the surface had that color in it the entire time. Allow the glycerin solution to remain on the trim surface for 3 to 5 minutes. This dwell time is the most commonly skipped step, and it is the most important one. During this window, the glycerin molecules are penetrating the oxidized surface layer and forming the hydrogen bonds with the degraded polymer chain terminations that produce the durable restoration effect. A 30-second application and wipe is cosmetically equivalent to a silicone spray. It looks good immediately and fades within weeks. The dwell time is what separates a surface treatment from a structural treatment of the degraded polymer layer. After the dwell time, take a second clean, dry microfiber cloth and buff the surface with light pressure. You are removing excess glycerin that has not penetrated and is sitting on the surface. Buff until the surface appears dry, but looks deep black. Do not apply heavy pressure. You are removing surface excess, not polishing the plastic. A very thin residual film of glycerin remaining on the surface at this point is acceptable and benefits the result. Work systematically across the entire vehicle: front bumper, lower valance, wheel arch moldings, front and rear, all 4-door trim panels and lower moldings, rear bumper and lower valance, any running boards or side steps, and roof rails, if your vehicle has them. Take your time on each section. The total material cost means there is no reason to rush or ration the solution. Now the critical final step, the UV protectant spray. Do not skip this. Without UV protection applied over the glycerin-treated surface, The freshly treated trim will begin refading within 4 to 8 weeks in high UV environments, and within 8 to 16 weeks, even in moderate UV environments. Here is why. The glycerin penetration has restored the optical appearance of the trim by reducing scattering in the oxidized surface layer. But the photo-oxidative degradation process is still operating on that surface every time the vehicle sits in sunlight. The UV protectant spray builds a filter layer above the glycerin-treated surface that dramatically reduces the UV flux reaching the polymer, slowing the continued degradation by a factor of 3 to 5 depending on the UV absorber concentration in the spray. After you have completed the glycerin treatment on all trim surfaces and completed the buffing step, allow 5 minutes for the glycerin to settle fully into the surface. Then shake the UV protectant spray can for a full 60 seconds. Apply one even coat to all treated trim surfaces, holding the can approximately 25 centimeters away and using smooth, overlapping horizontal passes. Allow 5 minutes for the first coat to dry. Apply a second coat using the same technique. 2 thin coats provide substantially better UV protection than 1 heavy coat, for the same reason that multiple thin coats of clear coat on paint outperform single heavy applications. Thinner coats adhere more completely and cure with less internal stress and fewer pinholes. Allow the UV protectant to cure for 30 minutes before driving the vehicle or exposing it to moisture. The glycerin restores the appearance. The UV protectant preserves it. Together, in a climate with high UV exposure, Arizona, Nevada, Florida, Texas, Southern California, this combination will maintain the deep black restoration result for 6 to 12 months before a maintenance application is appropriate. In lower UV climates, 12 to 18 months between maintenance applications is typical. At a total material cost of $5 to $8 per full vehicle treatment, even 4 applications per decade costs less than $40. Against the industry's 4 to 8 week replacement cycle for commercial trim restorer products, the economics are not comparable. Let us close with the number that the trim restorer industry does not want you to calculate. The average American vehicle owner with a pickup truck or SUV spends between 8 and 12 applications of commercial trim restorer per year to maintain the appearance of their exterior plastic trim at $15 to $40 per bottle. Call it $200 per year at the conservative end, over a 10-year vehicle lifespan. That is $2,000. On trim product, for a problem that costs $8 to solve and $40 to maintain for the entire decade, that gap, $1,960, is the business model. It is not a conspiracy with secret meetings and sinister plans. It is just the quiet arithmetic of a product that is formulated to fail on schedule, packaged in a bottle that makes the failure look like normal wear, and sold by an industry that has made sure the $1 pharmacy answer never appears in your search results, your YouTube feed, or on the shelf next to the $40 bottle. You found it anyway. That is what this channel is for. If this video saved you money, share it. Put it in the car forum for your vehicle model. Send it to whoever in your life just bought a new truck and is already watching the trim fade. Post it in the Facebook group. The only reason this information spreads is because people who know it carry it, because the algorithm will not carry it for us. Subscribe if you have not. The industry prays you never find out. Now you have. The next blueprint covers something the automotive paint industry has been doing to your clear coat since the 1990s, a degradation cycle that costs the average car owner between $3,000 and $6,000 over a vehicle lifespan, and the solution is sitting in any grocery store for under $2. Subscribe, ring the bell, do not miss it. The next blueprint opens soon, and what is inside is even